morning. The Honorable Ryan Straughn, Minister in the Ministry of Finance, Sir Trevor Carmichael, Mr. Randall Belgrave, QC, Chairman of the Barbados Stock Exchange, Mr. Marlon Yard, Managing Director of the Barbados Stock Exchange and the Barbados Central Securities Depository, featured panelists, guests of the Barbados Stock Exchange, and of course the attendees, and sponsors and partners. Welcome to the sixth installment of the Barbados Stock Exchange's Corporate Governance and Accountability Conference. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Barry Blenman, and I am the Operations Supervisor responsible for business development with the Barbados Stock Exchange, and I also act as the coordinator for the conference series. This year I'd like to thank our partners, especially ACCA Global and the ICSA Governance Institute, our sponsors, PwC, Deloitte Consulting Limited, List Assist, ISM Services Limited, Coinstar Limited, and the last one is escaping me right now. Deloitte. I said Deloitte already. Forgive me, I'm a bit nervous. Admittedly, I've been running around since about 11. I left for 11 last night, and I came this morning pretty early. Today's session is a bit different from last year. For those of you who attended last year, we normally have 2 days, but we cut it down to 1 day this year. At the same time, my persons had mentioned it was a bit tough getting out of the office for 2 days, so we cut it to 1 day this year, and we're testing this model to see if it works. So your reviews this evening will be appreciated. Before I welcome Mr. Yard up to deliver the welcome remarks, because I'm not giving the welcome remarks, I'm an MC of sorts. Just some logistical issues. Yesterday evening I would have forwarded emails to all the attendees for the presentations. Those of you who didn't get the presentations, you can go to bsc.com.bb/news/9662. You just scroll down to where it says restricted access for attendees only, and you click on that link, and you enter the passcode, which is BSC CGAC, all caps 2018, and you have access to all the presentations. And other than that, logistics, the bathrooms, for those who are new to the hotel, are across the walkway around the white picket fence to the right, and then the back ladies are on the right, gents are on the left. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Mr. Yard to come and give his remarks, and I wish you enjoy today's sessions. Thank you.
Good morning. The Honorable Ryan Ricardo Straughn, Minister in the Ministry of Finance, who will be speaking on behalf of our Prime Minister, the Honorable Mia Moore-Motley, Prime Minister of Barbados and Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs. The Prime Minister advised me personally that she would not be able to attend the conference this morning because of other pressing matters, and she offers her sincerest apologies. Mr. Randall Belgrave, QC, Chairman of the Barbados Stock Exchange and its subsidiary, the Barbados Central Securities Depository, Sir Trevor Carmichael, Director of the Barbados Stock Exchange, members of the board, management, and staff of the Barbados Stock Exchange and its subsidiary, Mr. Castigai, CEO of the Financial Services Commission, other representatives of our regulator, the Financial Services Commission, listed companies and participants, shareholders and stakeholders of the BSC, directors, CEOs, corporate secretaries, governance and risk professionals, compliance officers, and all governance enthusiasts at heart, our distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you on behalf of the Barbados Stock Exchange Board of Directors, management staff to our annual conference, our annual Corporate Governance and Accountability Conference 2018. Making this conference on corporate governance the gold standard, not just here in Barbados, but across the CARICOM region, is our perennial goal. As we continue to utilize the sum of the sharpest minds on corporate governance to keep you up to date and well-informed. This is our 6th installment, and I am thankful for the annual coordination and leadership of Mr. Barry Blenman, the Operations Supervisor, Business Development, and Ms. Kerry Green, our Corporate Secretary of the Exchange, who both do an exceptional job in pulling together the conference each year. We are always grateful for the kind support of our sponsors, speakers, and you, our attendees. This conference is an opportunity not only for the Barbados Stock Exchange and its subsidiary, the Barbados Central Securities Depository, to showcase who we are and what we represent, but also for us to share our vision with you and to reinforce the importance of corporate governance in business activities across all sectors. The BSC intends to be a global player in the exchange business. This is not a glib or easy feat, but one that we are working earnestly towards achieving. Evidenced not only by the launch of our international securities market, but also our recent foray into the world of blockchain technology. We are constantly educating ourselves on blockchain, on a number of topics that include distributed ledger technology, DLT, the evolving global regulatory environment, the issues of custody and settlement, particularly as it relates to settlement of fiat or cryptocurrencies, investor protection, the management of risk, particularly systemic risk to the market, and 6, most importantly, the application of existing corporate governance practices being developed in the distributed ledger space, what I will term crypto governance. With the onset of the tokenization revolution, the BSC is focused on facilitating and trading of those securitized tokens. We are hopeful. In fact, let me be bold and declare we are confident that our regulator, the Financial Services Commission, led by Mr. Castigai, will support us in pursuing this new and innovative direction. I have declared it, and so shall it be. A few years ago, the phrase excellent corporate governance, as opposed to just good corporate governance, was coined by us. Maybe it was said somewhere else before, but we at the Barbados Stock Exchange are going to make it, we're going to take ownership of it. Excellent corporate governance is not a fad or a catchy buzz phrase. For listed companies, it's particularly important. The presence of excellent corporate governance standards will instill investor confidence in the quest to both raise and retain corporate capital. In that regard, let me switch gears just slightly and briefly outline the relevance of the Barbados Stock Exchange to the national economy. No modern economy can achieve its optimal capacity without a well-functioning capital market. As such, the Stock Exchange has developed a 3-pronged strategy for facilitating capital mobility in Barbados through 1, the relaunching and rebranding of our junior market to be called the Innovation and Growth Market, IGM, of the BSC. 2, continued promotion of the international securities market. And 3, promoting the Barbados's international securities market as a trading platform of choice for crypto assets, such as security tokens. There are several small companies which can benefit from the innovation and growth market. But for the innovation and growth market to take off, the proper incentives must be in place. We have been lobbying governments repeatedly, I almost said over the last 10 years, over the years, for the correct implementation of these incentives. We hope that with this kind of assistance of our minister in the Ministry of Finance, these incentives will finally be enacted so that the decade ahead and beyond will be characterized by sustainable prosperity, both for local and international businesses in Barbados. Regarding our ISM, part of our strategy is to achieve recognized stock exchange status in key international markets. This will put our feet in the door, so to speak, and strategically place us in a position to garner new listings. In the UK, for example, we are in the process of filing an application with Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs to obtain recognized stock exchange status under Section 1005 of the Income Tax Act of the UK. In the US, we are working towards becoming a designated offshore securities market with the Securities and Exchange Commission under Part 230.902 of the Securities Act, General Rules and Regulation. We are now looking at obtaining recognition status in the relevant authorities in Canada and Hong Kong in the future. We believe that Barbados' double taxation agreement with China was strategically negotiated and therefore can serve as a gateway for local and international companies to tap into the abundant capital present in the Southeast Asia market. We are also developing key relationships with the London Stock Exchange and the Toronto Stock Exchange to facilitate eventual cross-listings for ISM-listed companies. Regarding the blockchain space, we are at the final stages of negotiating with a global player for provision of a trading platform for securitized tokens. Once the final agreement is signed off by management, it will be passed on to our external legal counsel for review, and finally to our board for consideration and approval. The focus of the Corporate Governance and Accountability Conference this year. This year, the theme of our conference is Brexit and beyond. Two of our speakers today will give us a UK perspective on corporate governance. This fits neatly with our overall strategy of being a truly global exchange. In July, I was in London for two reasons. Firstly, to attend the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators, or the Governance Institute annual conference, but also to meet with market participants, legal firms, potential issuers, and the London Stock Exchange. My meetings were facilitated by our legal counsel in London, Ms. Caroline Kurzweil, who is assisting us with the HMRC recognition aforementioned. Caroline, please stand, let them see who you are. The main objective of my trip was to understand the UK business landscape, to determine what opportunities may be present with the onset of Brexit. I believe there are opportunities for Barbados, and as governance professionals, we need to place ourselves in a position to advise our boards strategically on how to take advantage of these opportunities. Every year, we strive to ensure that our conference is timely, relevant, and informative. This year is no exception, and we are fortunate to have the following speakers for our conference. The Honorable Ryan Ricardo Straughn, MP, Minister in the Ministry of Finance, will deliver the feature address. I am sure we are looking forward to your address, sir. No pressure, Minister. If something is nice, you do it twice. Once again, joining us is Mrs. Suzanne Foltz Goldston, a senior lecturer in the law faculty of the Mona campus of the University of the West Indies. Mrs. Foltz Goldston has been contracted by the BSc to review our current corporate governance recommendations and to propose revisions. This year, she will be sharing on the topic Proposed Revisions to the BSc Corporate Governance Recommendations for Listed Companies. On a personal note, she's also lecturing my daughter in company law this semester at Mona. We look forward to hearing her thoughts. Ms. Jo Awasaki, did I pronounce it right? More or less. I wanted to check that with you before I came up here, you know. Head of Corporate Governance, Professional Insights, ACCA, she will give us insights into corporate governance emerging trends. Mr. Peter Swaby is the Policy and Research Director of the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators, the Governance Institute. Mr. Swaby will be speaking on UK Corporate Governance Code, UK Governance Code, update, where are we? I heard him speak on a similar topic earlier this year. He's erudite. Ms. Claudia Clark Otterson, Senior Manager of PwC, is no stranger to us as a speaker. She will cover the topic, the effects of corporate governance policies and practices on financial performance of big corporations in developing countries. This is an interesting topic. It is always good to hear, as governance professionals, how what we do is how it impacts the bottom line. Our penultimate session for the day will be a panel discussion on the topic, the international securities market and corporate governance, finding the perfect fit. This will provide you with a broader perspective on the ISM by our panel comprised of some of our listing sponsors for this market. The role of a listing sponsor is key to the ISM process, as an issuer must appoint a listing sponsor to list on the international securities market. Mr. Peter Swaby will return to moderate this panel, which includes Ms. Caroline Kurzweil of Chancery Chambers, Ms. Nicola A. Berry, partner of Clark Giddens and Farmer and one of the principals of List Assist, Mr. Sean Laurie, Managing Director of CoinStart, Ms. Deidre Quagwell Giddens, and Ms. Catherine Drummond of Deloitte and Touche, Barbados. Our final business session for the day will be a question and answer session with some of our speakers. We have a diverse board of speakers with varying skill sets, backgrounds, and experience. They will be sure to add value to the event today. So again, I want to thank you for attending and supporting our conference this year. We at the Barbados Stock Exchange are always excited to host this conference, as we know the wealth of information you will be exposed to. Our partners and sponsors ensured the continuity of the conference by their generosity, time, and pecuniary assistance. We will truly appreciate this. A special hearty thanks to ICSA, the Governance Institute, PricewaterhouseCoopers, ACCA, List Assist Services Barbados Limited, Centurion ISM Services Limited, CoinStart Limited, and Deloitte Consulting Limited. I want to close my remarks by thanking you, dear attendees, for entrusting us today with furthering your professional development. I believe this will be time well spent for your organizations, and I look forward to interacting with many of you as the day progresses. With that said, on behalf of the board, management and staff of the Barbados Stock Exchange, I welcome you to enjoy this year's Corporate Governance and Accountability Conference 2018. Thank you. It is my pleasure now to introduce our featured speaker this morning. The Honorable Ryan Ricardo Straughn, MP, is a Barbadian economist, politician, and a current cabinet minister. He holds a BSc in Economics and Mathematics from the University of the West Indies, Cayfield campus, with first-class honors, and an MSc Econometrics degree with the University of Manchester, and is a trained national statistician, IFM Institute. Ryan Straughn is an economist with work experience at domestic, regional, and international level. He founded Abelian Consulting Services and is a former Central Bank of Barbados economist with 10 years experience modeling the macroeconomic business cycles and assessing the stability of the financial system. He spent 4 years at the Central Bank of Barbados modeling the economy of Barbados and was consulted on rebasing the Barbados economy since leaving the institution about 13 years ago. Mr. Straughn joined the Risk Management Department of Motability Operations UK in 2006 as its asset risk analysis, where he conducted extensive risk analytics and economic capital modeling in the company portfolio worth $3.7 billion with annual turnover of 2.2. He formed Abelian Associates in the UK, where he provided consulting services for companies such as MasterCard Europe, HSBC, and Zurich. He is also former president of the Barbados Economic Society and former chairman of the Trade and Economic Policy Committee at the Barbados Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Another one of Mr. Straughn's many roles is the director of the Waterford Music and Cultural Society, a non-profit organization that is committed to the development and transformation of music and its practice among the youth in Barbados and the wider Caribbean. Mr. Straughn, a first-time to elective politics, successfully contested the Christchurch East Central seat for the Barbados Labour Party earlier this year in the general elections. He was subsequently appointed to minister in the Ministry of Finance in the Mia Motley administration. Mr. Straughn is married with a wife, Jennifer, and father of Kofi Obama. He enjoys swimming with his family and has confidently asserted, this is a good one, and has confidently asserted that he would win a cooking competition for politicians, hands down. I now welcome Minister Straughn to the podium.
Good morning, everybody. Protocol having been established, it really is a pleasure to be here with you this morning to share a few thoughts on behalf of the Prime Minister and certainly the government of Barbados. And for me, it's an extra pleasure in a sense because a lot of the work that we have embarked on in the ministry over the last 3 months or so have been designed specifically to provide a level of stability that this country now requires. But before I get into my speech, I just wanted to bring to your attention something that I read in your conference document. It's actually Mr. Yar's address, the second paragraph. I'm going to read it because I think it's particularly instructive, not just for the persons in this room, but certainly for the rest of Barbados. And it says, after the general election of May 24, there was an expectation that we had passed the worst and we would be on a path to economic recovery. A new administration led by the Prime Minister, the Honorable Mayor Amar Motley QCMP, has advised the nation that sweeping changes are in store. These changes aimed at addressing the way the country has been managed are being proposed by the new administration as it begins the task of rebuilding the economy and leading it to prosperity. The path ahead will be arduous, but it is evident that it can no longer be business as usual for the country. I focus on that because much of what many of you do in this room is pretty much misunderstood by the rest of the people outside of this room. And certainly a lot of what government has embarked on over the years has had a similar impact. And the reality now is we have to change the way not just that we do business, but the way that we communicate, because the people of this country, and certainly your various constituents, wherever they are globally, will demand of us a different level of accountability as we move forward in the 21st century. And your conference has come at a particularly opportune time, because as we have started the process of stabilizing the economy, then we feel very confidently that the activities that you engage in this room on a daily basis with respect to financial services and how those are delivered, we now need to unpack all of that such that the ordinary Barbadian understands the importance not just of investing, but the importance of good corporate governance and its impact that it has on investment, the impact it has on jobs, and the impact that it has on the social justice mechanisms within the country. And so it will not be business as usual. It cannot be business as usual. I think you've already seen that the new administration, our government, will be as open as we need to be, simply because the expectations of people, the expectations of corporate entities, the expectation of investors as a class require that your government provides a clear and certain path with respect to how you can conduct your business in this country. And so I felt it was important to say that at the outset, because we have it within us to get out of the situation we found ourselves in. And the reality is that collectively, in a sense, we are all responsible for where we arrived at. And by the same token, we now are collectively responsible for charting the recovery of this country. The basic ingredients are still there, but with clear, decisive leadership, which we hope to provide not just the persons in this room, but certainly the persons across the length and breadth of Barbados, leadership across the region, we know what Barbados can be. We believe very confidently that we will turn this country around, but it will take long, hard work. And I want to say, before I actually get into the speech, just last night we finished Cabinet at 11 p.m. And one of the things that the ministry would have brought to the Cabinet was the securities validation of fees bill for the 2018, which deals specifically with the fees that the stock exchange should be charged. And I can say to you that having read the file on that, the exchange between the stock exchange and the FSC took 8 years to arrive at what we're going to agree, what to charge the stock exchange. Now, we can't operate like that now, because Barbados has found itself in almost every measure lagging behind almost every country in the Caribbean, globally. And so therefore, I can commit to you, and certainly the rest of the country, that with the kind of leadership that we will provide, that we must now become pioneers again in charting our own future, breaking new ground with confidence, such that the opportunities for ordinary Barbadians to achieve global excellence will become a lived reality in our lifetime. There are thousands of young Barbadians who want to do very interesting and intriguing things. And we must now work together to make sure that we unlock that potential at every level, in every space, because that is now what is required to lift Barbados to new heights. And certainly we are committed to that process, and so I have given every indication, and certainly the Prime Minister has, that whilst we will not do anything to undermine the financial stability of this country, we must now turn our minds to competing globally. And therefore we must be excellent in every single thing that we do. And it cannot take 8 years to agree what we're going to charge one another for services. Such that, whether as a regulator, as a policy maker, there must be clear certainty with respect to how we move forward. Because the context in which we're talking about good corporate governance and its importance for the management of any entity, furthermore an economy, we must make sure that the tenets that undergirds good corporate governance exudes every single department within government, because the livelihoods of thousands of Barbadians depend on those decisions on a day-to-day basis. So I want to assure you that your government understands what is required to get out of this situation. And we have been working to make sure that we unlock every opportunity to bring growth back to this economy, not just domestically, but we now must go into the world and compete with confidence as Barbadians service providers, delivering a level of excellence that would attract any multinational corporation to want to do business in Barbados. And whilst there are issues with respect to the OECD, BEPS, and the like, what we call the offshore sector, international business, real challenges, which I don't think I need to say to highlight to anybody in this room. But we now must ensure that the rest of Barbados understand why it is important that we get that space right. Because the livelihood and the lifestyle that we've grown accustomed to has been supported by our engagement in that space. And so therefore, every single thing that we do here in Barbados over the course of the next few years must be done well. It must be as good as any service that you can get in New York, that you can get in London, Tokyo, wherever. And I say as good, it really should be better. And that is what we must aim to do to make sure that Barbados can recover and recover quickly from this current situation. So having said that, let me turn to my speech, which is a little difficult to do now, because often when you're scripted, it's difficult to deliver the real message. But it is important that, obviously, having been asked to deliver these remarks, that I share them with you and certainly the rest of the public, because we are in this together. And where there are impediments, you must come and let us know, and we will execute where we need to execute. And at no point in time should any of our consultations be deemed as hostile, because they will be pushed back and forth. But we must do so out of respect of the fact that this country needs all of us to move forward. So, let me start. The Barbados Stock Exchange and its subsidiary, the Barbados Central Securities Depository, Inc., are two of the most recognizable participants in the capital market in Barbados. They have continued to evolve and develop in order to maintain a credible facility for the trading and settlement of securities in Barbados. This conference is now in its 6th year and demonstrates the high standards and the values ascribed to good governance by the Barbados Stock Exchange. While the terminology broadly outlines the way companies are directed and are controlled, it is not always easy to pin down this ideology into a specific methodology because of A, the diversity among companies, and the evolving nature of our businesses. However, reviews of practices on a relatively frequent basis serves well to ensure that the systems in place are working for the business. In other words, are the desired results being observed? Are the practices and policies contributing to effective management and outcomes? Is the company on track to achieving its targets? Are the stakeholders, including employees, aware of their rights and responsibilities in the pursuit of strategic objectives? The tenets of good corporate governance allows for the strengthening of the legal, regulatory, and institutional framework that supports the achievement of long-term desired objectives. In the context of the Barbados Stock Exchange, such contributions may be the enhancement of market integrity and transparency, and the overall contribution to economic growth and development. The counterpositive of this can be easily argued. That is, if there is a lack of good corporate governance and poor accountability, then we cannot reasonably expect integrity and transparency within our markets. Loss of shareholder confidence becomes imminent, a fall-off in investments or other potential business is likely to be observed. And taken together, these conditions will stifle economic growth and the development of our people. The current administration recognizes these potential problems and is keen on and has already started to implement systems of its own to ensure good corporate governance that is consistent with the OECD, World Bank, and any global standard. This is particularly critical in times of challenge, and if there was ever a time that I implore businesses, state-owned enterprises, and the wider public sector to strengthen its accountability structures, it is now. As a self-regulatory organization, the Stock Exchange has a critical role for ensuring good corporate governance in its own operations and in supporting and promoting effective corporate governance for all its listed entities. Accordingly, the quality of rules and regulations of the Stock Exchange, which govern trading and set criteria for the users on the platform, is the undergirding element that imposes a good corporate governance framework. March 2013, the Stock Exchange issued corporate governance recommendations and insider trading guidelines for all listed companies, which came into force in January of 2014. The Barbados Stock Exchange followed the issuance of these recommendations and guidance with the launch of an annual corporate governance conference, which has been attended by a cross-section of the business community over the last 6 years. In addition to issuing new guidelines for the industry, the Barbados Stock Exchange recently overhauled its rules for trading on the domestic market, thereby enhancing and modernizing the standards to which issuers and trading participants are held. The number of securities listed has decreased within the last 5 years from 26 to 18, mainly as a result of voluntary delistings. The number of listed companies, although declined from 20 to 17 companies. Although there's been a general decline in trading activity over the years, the Barbados Stock Exchange reported modest growth in the market index and market capitalization. These upticks were primarily driven by share price appreciation, which in some cases was triggered by takeover transactions. In the more recent past, the BSE's capital market developments included the official launch of the international securities market. The ISM officially launched in March 2016 and serves as a trading platform strictly for the purpose of trading international securities separate from the domestic market. This pioneering initiative has contributed to the enhancement of Barbados' position as an international financial center. 6 entities have been duly registered with the Barbados Stock Exchange as listing sponsors and in good standing of the ISM. At the end of the 2017-18 period, 1 issuer was duly registered after having successfully met the ISM's issuer requirements, listing 2 securities on the ISM. Based on discussions with the Barbados Stock Exchange, it is anticipated that its focus will be on further developing its regulatory framework through enhancements of its compliance program and the conduct of an increased number of on-site examinations of its trading participants. The BSE is also examining a launch of a rebranded junior market for the purpose of attracting small capital companies and startup companies. The role and development of the exchange in today's environment. Since the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas, policymakers have tried to facilitate an interregional securities market, inclusive of a harmonized stock exchange market. To date, strides in this matter has not advanced to the degree of integration we would like to see. Shared services, cross-border supervision, and convergence in standards and other particulars are some of the benefits that can accrue to the region. Our major companies operate across regional jurisdictions, and some are listed on multiple exchanges. In an era where a company's decisions are based on a group consideration, our regional market should at least be at a stage where our legal and regulatory frameworks provide the least friction as possible. Whether it be mergers and acquisitions, reporting requirements, or investor protection, common standards will certainly contribute to strengthening the transparency and accountability across the region. In relation to new and emerging products, the role of the stock exchange may require new shapes. Fintech and the digital space is now our reality. While I acknowledge that shares on the Barbados Stock Exchange are now held by a firm in this space, significant opportunities can be had by onboarding the new and emerging technologies, which was alluded to earlier. We anticipate that the stock exchange can employ the use of financial technology, fintech firms, to assist in educating the public in terms of what goes on in the stock market. In addition, the BSE platform can partner with fintech businesses, thus allowing them to leverage the platform in order to raise capital to fund their business activities. The BSE has a commitment to this segment of the market in order to provide access to capital, especially for small businesses. Opening up the stock market for fintech is critical, as this has the capacity to simplify a system which is currently structured too difficult for ordinary investors with little knowledge. This will benefit not only the regulator and the startups, but also the national economy and the drive to be more financially inclusive. Currently, employing the use of a stockbroker appears the only logical way of making any profit. In order To make the right investment decisions, one requires access to the right information, which suggests that profit is likely and that the potential for return justifies the amount invested. This is where fintech companies can play a role in providing open source technology, which enables the average citizen the opportunity to deal with their finances at their convenience at reduced rates. The Barbados Stock Exchange and the Barbados Central Securities Depository, Inc. are already well placed as facilitators for transparent secondary market trading and timely settlement of dematerialized securities. The increased use of these services for dematerialized government securities provide a possible avenue for increased trading of such securities and greater market liquidity. I speak now, again, not just to those at this conference, but to the thousands of Barbadians across the country who have invested faithfully in government securities. As you're aware, we took a decision on June 1st that Barbados should undergo a comprehensive debt restructuring exercise, including both foreign and domestic securities. To the objective observer and investor, any glance at the financial balance sheet of Barbados, one can only reasonably conclude that the country was insolvent, and further, that only clear and decisive steps would suffice to effectively address the situation. With the increasing calls for the adoption of technology-based solutions in various various aspects of the business environment, there are benefits to be derived from moving towards the increased trading and settlement of dematerialized government securities, including the opportunity to reduce time and costs associated with trading of such securities. I'm therefore happy to report that just last night, the Cabinet of Barbados took a policy decision brought by the Ministry of Finance to instruct the Chief Parliamentary Council to draft legislation to allow for the dematerialization of securities of debentures, treasury notes, and savings bonds. This already exists for treasury bills, but as we seek to bring government into the 21st century, this modernization of the way government does its business with citizens will bring tremendous benefit to further capital market development. Some of the benefits of a demat account are: one, a safe and convenient way of holding securities, as the risks pertaining to physical certificates like theft, loss, forgery, and damage are eliminated completely. Two, securities can be transferred at an instruction only. Three, pledging of securities in a short period of time. Four, reduced paperwork and transaction costs. Five, the lack of paperwork enables quicker transactions and higher efficiency in trading. Six, trading becomes more convenient as one can trade through computers at any location without the need of visiting a broker. Now, 2 weeks ago, the government of Barbados launched our debt exchange to bring resolution to the domestic component of our debt. It is our expectation that the Central Bank of Barbados will implement the debt workout through the issuance of dematerialized securities, thus making it easier for all investors. In addition to the introduction of this new legislation, we will also amend other critical pieces of legislation to bring resolution to domestic debt workout. In the very near future, holders of government of Barbados debt will find it easy to trade their securities as the dematerialized format allows for it. The fact that the new debt instruments will also be issued in strips also allows for greater flexibility. The government is committed to broadening the creation of wealth and opportunity in the country. And we believe that the stock exchange, by its nature, is meant to be a facilitator of wealth creation, and therefore, as such, is often referred to as a barometer of the business and economic conditions in a country. Securities prices typically rise during periods of business and economic prosperity, whilst the converse is true during economic stagnation. Security prices also change with the change in economic, social, and political conditions. We therefore feel that the stock exchange must adapt beyond its current model if it is to truly achieve financial relevance to the masses in the 21st century. The democratization of wealth creation and management in the real economy must become a feature of the activities of the stock exchange. In recent times, we have witnessed the proliferation of online forex trading platforms which seem to have captured the imagination of the ordinary citizen, who are often completely unaware as to the potential risks that exist on such high-frequency trading platforms. We feel that there still exists a real opportunity to be created using a similar approach, which is still rooted in tangible assets that allows ordinary citizens to have a stake both in the development of the country and a share in the proverbial economic cake. The timing of this conference, therefore, could not be more opportune. After having reached staff-level agreement with the International Monetary Fund 2 weeks ago. To many, it appears to have been a short period of time, but in reality, this has been the result of 2 years of careful monitoring of the rapid economic decline and planning on our part to make sure that this became a reality. It must be said very clearly that reaching of the IMF staff-level agreement is an important signal to the market that Barbados is on its way back. The fact that there's a debt restructuring was creating some anxiety among certain classes of bondholders. It also presents a real opportunity for those that can recognize it. There are entities that have registered interest in the further development of a more active secondary market for trade in government securities. What this potentially means is that for entities and or individuals desirous of liquidating their holdings of government securities, they can have the option to exercise because of the potential increased liquidity of trades. As I mentioned earlier, the Barbados Stock Exchange and the Central Securities Depository are already facilitators. But in my view, right now should be in the vanguard of educating the public as to their options under the current debt restructuring. It is important to point out that the current government of Barbados has decided to ring-fence those holders of savings bonds on the basis that the very principles of good corporate governance were not followed. The fact that the minimum deposit rate was reduced in such dramatic fashion, whilst almost simultaneously offering the public the opportunity to earn a return of 5.5%, was simply too good to pass up. However, the fact that none of the persons who bought the said securities were told that the central bank at the time was printing $50 million per month to finance government's expenditure represented certainly in my mind a breach of trust. In other jurisdictions, such a deliberate lack of financial disclosure would lead to someone heading to a correctional facility dressed perhaps in orange. Unfortunately, these were not the principles and practices of good corporate governance. And so this government took the view that those persons needed a level of protection not offered to them by the previous administration. So to put it plainly, those who bought savings bonds under the glitzy marketing campaign of 3 years ago will not be affected by the debt restructuring, as this government will protect their interests as all responsible governments are meant to do. We have also created a special instrument for pensioners who hold government securities, such that they will receive principal payments over the course of the next 4 years. We are cognizant that many individuals who hold bonds might not have read the detailed prospectus when they originally purchased the existing securities. But the government will endeavor to further sensitize the public as to the clear economic signals to look for before committing one's hard-earned monies. Recent indictments of former ministers of government and the publication of the sordid details of what took place with one of your very listed companies is a clear shot across the bow for the entire country that it cannot be business as usual. We must all collectively redouble our efforts to ensure that the conduct of the people's business, whether in public or private institutions, is done with absolutely clean hands. To that end, on our side, as we have constituted the new boards of management across the many state-owned enterprises, the Ministry of Finance, as a matter of urgency, has proposed that all board members be exposed to the principles and practice of good corporate governance and anti-money laundering training. We believe this is critical to Barbados' ability to re-establish itself as a jurisdiction where corruption is not only perceived to be law, but is indeed the reality. Ladies and gentlemen, Barbados has reached a stage where we now must make sure that every transaction, every opportunity, every tender must be able to stand scrutiny in the light of day or in the dead of night. And this government is committed to making sure that over the course of the next few months, as we bring new procurement legislation to the books of Barbados, as we seek to review the Public Financial Management or the Act, as we go through the various reforms within customs, immigration, you name it, that the people of this country, whether as citizens, business people, or investors, are able to have clarity of purpose and certainty such that they can carry out their business. This conference is important, but it is not just important for the persons in this room. It is important for the future of this country. Because the way that the government of Barbados, its state-owned enterprises, the private sector, the way that we do business now with each other has to withstand scrutiny. Because that is what will rebuild the trust, which would allow persons to freely purchase government paper over the long term. Because you'll be confident that the institutions of government, your public policy is being drafted in a manner that represents the interests of ordinary Barbadians. And so as you have seen over the years, not just the deterioration in credit quality of the government of Barbados, but that has also been accompanied by a severe lack of growth in the economy, which you have witnessed in some of your companies. You've seen an exodus of business from the country. And the reality is that is largely driven by the way that we have conducted ourselves over the last few years. We intend to change that. We hope that you will be a partner in changing that. And so I wish to commend both the Stock Exchange and its subsidiary, the Barbados Central Securities Depository, Inc., for leading the way in corporate governance and accountability in the 21st century. I wish you continued success in your future endeavors and hope that you have very good proceedings. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you.